It was my bachelorette party, and all my friends were excited, with music and drinks. Suddenly, a hired dancer arrived for the party, young, handsome, and athletic. What started as a show ended badly. I got carried away, and my fiancé has no idea. The most ironic part is that while it was happening, I kept telling myself that I loved my boyfriend. That I still loved him. And that what we had was real. Everything was laughter, raised glasses, loud music, and that feeling of now or never. My friends had organized the perfect bachelorette party, hotel booked, over-the-top decorations, ridiculous games, and an endless list of drinks that seemed harmless. I was happy. Nervous, yes, but happy. I was about to marry the man I had chosen, the one I had planned a life with, the one I imagined growing old with. Or at least, that's what I thought. That night, I felt watched. Not out of distrust, but because of that attention you don't notice until it's on you. Glances, soft comments, smiles that linger a second too long. I tried to ignore them, or at least I told myself I was. I kept repeating that it was just the atmosphere, the alcohol, the music. Nothing serious. Nothing that could put at risk everything I was about to start. But alcohol has a very particular way of convincing you that nothing is that serious. At first, it was just dancing. A big group, laughter, everyone moving without thinking too much. Then the drinks multiplied, and the conversations became closer, more interesting, more personal. I talked about my wedding, how nervous I was, how fast everything had happened. And someone was listening with an attention I hadn't noticed in a long time. He asked questions. Looked at me as if I were interesting, not as someone's future wife. That's when the problem started. I remember thinking at some point that I was just having fun. That I had the right. That it was my last free night. Horrible words, I know, but in that moment, they sounded reasonable. Even fair. I wasn't looking for anything. That's what I kept telling myself. I just wanted to feel free, without responsibilities, without promises. The alcohol kept flowing, and with it, the sense of control disappeared. Every laugh got louder, every gaze lasted longer. I knew exactly who I was and what I was doing, but I chose not to stop. I chose not to think about my boyfriend, his face, how he looked at me when we talked about the future. I chose the immediate present, that instant where no one asks for explanations. By the time I realized I was no longer with my friends, it was too late. There wasn't a single moment when everything happened. It was a sum of small decisions. A hallway, a door closing, a silence that felt too comfortable. In my head, I still heard that absurd phrase, "It's just fun." I don't want to go into details about how it happened. It's not necessary. What matters is that it happened. I cheated on my fiancé. I was unfaithful just before the wedding. I went back to the room, looked at myself in the mirror, and told myself it was the alcohol. That it wasn't me. That anyone, under those conditions, could make a mistake. I showered as if I could wash away more than just the scent of a long night. I put on my pajamas and went to bed without thinking too much. And I slept. The next morning, I woke up with a headache and still a little dizzy. My friends were talking about stories, laughing, blurry photos. No one knew anything. No one suspected anything. I nodded, smiled, acted. Meanwhile, in my head, I was already making a decision. I wasn't going to say anything. I convinced myself it was an isolated mistake. A meaningless slip. Something that didn't define who I was or how I felt about my boyfriend. I told myself that confessing would only hurt him, destroy something good over something that wouldn't happen again. I told myself that staying quiet could also be a way to protect. When I got home, he was waiting with a smile. He hugged me, asked if I had fun, if everything went well. I told him yes. That it had been amazing. And I hugged him back, tightly, as if that could make sure nothing had changed. The following days were a silent test. Not because anyone suspected anything, but because my own mind kept going back to that night. I continued with my routine, working, talking about the wedding, picking out details, answering messages. From the outside, everything looked perfectly normal. Inside, there was a folder I still didn't dare to open. One afternoon, without really looking for it, I picked up my phone. I started scrolling through the gallery under the pretense of freeing up space. Pictures of dresses, screenshots of things for the house, meaningless conversations. Until they appeared. I didn't remember taking them. Blurry photos, poorly framed, snapped without thinking. My face too close to someone else's, smiles that weren't for my boyfriend, pictures I shouldn't have kept. Then came the videos. Short, blurry, strange things I shouldn't have had. Me. That night. That moment I had tried so hard to make disappear. I froze, staring at the screen, with a strange feeling. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't fear. It was more like annoyance. Annoyance at myself for not being more careful. For leaving traces of something I had already decided to erase in my head. I took a deep breath and started deleting. One by one. Without drama. Photos, videos, memories disappearing with a single tap. I felt calmer. As if by deleting those files, I was also closing that chapter for good. When I finished, I checked the trash and emptied it. Made sure nothing was left. Absolutely nothing. I left my phone on the table and continued with my day. And that's when I made another decision, perhaps the most important one. I wasn't going to let this define my relationship. I wasn't going to turn one night into a permanent sentence. Because, as contradictory as it might sound, I knew something with absolute certainty. This was the first time. The only time. I had never cheated on my boyfriend before. Never done anything like it. It wasn't a pattern. It wasn't a double life. It was a single event, contained in a very specific context. A bachelorette party. For me, that day had a clear meaning. I had always thought of it that way, even before being engaged. A bachelorette party isn't a planned betrayal. It's a strange, socially accepted ritual where everyone seems to understand that the rules loosen for a few hours. A symbolic space where a woman can feel free one last time before taking on a role that, even if chosen, is full of responsibilities. I didn't experience it as infidelity. I experienced it as an indulgence in the moment. There were no messages afterward. No calls. No encounters. Nothing. That's also important to me. Because if something had continued, it would have been different. But it didn't. It stayed there, in that night and in those files that no longer existed. With my boyfriend, everything went on as usual. Or even better. We talked about the wedding, made plans, laughed. I looked at him and felt no rejection or distance. I felt affection. Desire. Security. No guilt telling me I should confess. No anxiety keeping me awake. There was calm, almost an uncomfortable calm at how relaxed I felt. Some people say that if there's no guilt, something is wrong. I don't see it that way. I believe guilt comes when you feel you did something wrong. And I didn't feel that. I felt that I had lived something I needed to live. I chose not to tell him. To leave things as they were. I wasn't hiding a lover or a lie. I was closing a chapter. We got married. The wedding was beautiful. I was excited. When I saw him waiting for me, I didn't think about the bachelorette party. I thought about us. And that, for me, was the final confirmation that I had made the right decision. Today we're still together. He never found out. Never suspected. Never doubted. And I don't live in fear. I enjoyed that night, and I don't regret it. Because, although many won't understand, for me that night wasn't a betrayal of my partner, but the farewell to a stage. A day of freedom. And yes, I know not everyone will agree. But this is my truth. It was the first time. It was the only time. And it didn't change how I feel about my partner.